Yo, this is the Streetwise Podcast. We're here to help you level up your game, level up your leadership, and level up your life. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. I'm a multi-brand franchisee, and I'm a franchise consultant where I help people find, launch, and build their ideal business. My main goal is to help you get off of zero and become the person that your dreams need you to be. Buckle up, get your popcorn ready. Let's go. Yo, this is Streetwise. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. On today's episode, we have JB Harrington with us today, telling us a little bit about his story, his ups, his downs, and what he does to help business owners in their space. And man, JB, appreciate you, man. How you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell the listener, what do you do? What's your thing, man? How you help people out, add value?
Share my story of my past experiences of being a business owner from 97 to 2015, some ups and downs, and some things I've learned uh, that were very costly, and then what I've learned since of how not to be so costly the last few years of my business. And then when I moved to Texas, I realized I have a niche that I can help people be proactive before it gets expensive.
Yeah, no, it does. So yeah, tell me about your experience as a business owner and how specifically do you help business owners now? What is that niche that you're talking about?
Okay, yeah, great question. I like it. And so let me kind of give you the snapshot of my previous business before moving back to Texas. 97, I started a roofing company. I was the sole owner of the company, pretty much everything of the company. And then over 2 to 3 years, it grew into a outdoor fix it all type company, siding, gutters, windows, and things like that. And then I was able to hire on people. Company kept organically growing because of referrals, and before you know it, I was what you call a full-on home improvement guy that turned into a construction company by 2008, where I could build you a house if you needed outdoor kitchens, kitchen remodels, bathroom remodels. Of course, roofing was always never going to go away because hailstorms happen all the time. And that's where most of my business was coming from. And I had a very awesome crew that helped take care of the work, and I was able to build relationships with other people and stuff like and so forth and so on. 2010, I trusted some people. We decided to try to create another company, become the number one construction company all of Oklahoma. I found that they found themselves a little bit greedy. We didn't do operating agreements, and we didn't do things to remain friends. In other words, we didn't do contracts between us to say, hey, we this piece and that piece and whatever. The short version of that is they took advantage. They tried to take advantage of it. Took thousands of dollars to chase that down to get things right. And then after that was over, of course, obviously that dissolved. I still maintained ownership of my own little company. Was able to recover from that and still be able to move on from it because once I got to it, I didn't really need them for whatever reason. I thought it was a good idea. I was going through a divorce at the time. It all made sounds good, but so I think they were taking advantage of that state of being. Anyway, after all that was over with, I was introduced to this thing called Legal Shield, which has provided small business avenue to attorneys for a little money. They gave me unlimited consultation, document reviews, collection letters, contract reviews, and things like that for just a little bit of money. And that made a lot of sense. So signed up for the service. I was using it for my services. I was using it for my business. I didn't do things without talking to an attorney. I didn't sign contracts without them being reviewed and things like that. And one of the big contracts that came across, it helped me save $30,000, and they got back to me the same day. And I'm like, wow, I wish I'd kind of knew about this now, but now, a few years before, it wouldn't have been so expensive. And anyway, long story short, I met Shelly along the way. The burnout happened of running the business in Oklahoma. She's in Austin, Texas. Relationship was going places, and I felt like it was time to sell and move back to Texas. Next thing I know, I'm finding myself doing this business of I did, because of what it did for me, and I wanted to share that experiences with other business owners and help them understand there is a cost-effective way of doing things before something happens, and that's why my tagline or my mantra or whatever is be proactive before it gets expensive. Be proactive before anything happens, and there's a way to do that for very little money. So
Hmm.
that's why I'm here, and I've been doing that now for see, that was 2015 when I finally decided, late 2015 into 2016 when I started to do that full time, do this full time.
How did you recover from, being burned like that in that partnership? I mean, you trusted those people, and then, you got, I mean, that's big, man. I think a lot of people have had that type of experience, but they don't necessarily know how to move past it and grow past it. I mean, what were you able to do maybe internally to kind of continue to push forward after that happened?
Mindset, first of all, is not to be defeated. That's number one. Number two was such a large customer database that I had over the years that also that I was able to call back and touch base and say, hey, it's been a while. Referrals, asking for referrals, tapping into that resources, and on and then and having close friends that just knew other people needed my services and stuff like that. And now having that database too was very helpful. So it was painful for about a year or so. Could feel the financial pain for a little while, and I would have to say yes. Yeah, Hailstorm the next following year also was helpful to recover and finish. Get back to where I was before I needed them, or I didn't really need them anyway. It just,
Mm.
but getting back to where I was before that came up. So you put all those pieces together, I think the number one thing is just not accepting failure, right? I just couldn't do that. So I didn't stop. I didn't let it defeat me.
Yeah. That's important. I mean, mindset's everything. I mean, we talk about that. You hear about it in all the books, all the leadership books, all the courses, all the seminars and networking groups, they talk about it, but then you get put in a situation where you actually have to practice it. That's a completely different
Yeah, no
beast.
kidding.
Okay. So, you were able to use your experience and then use that as an opportunity to pivot into what you're doing now. And, when we talked offline about kind of you've been on the show, and I think your experience is plays into a very essential kind of core value and in essence of what this show truly is about. And a big piece of that is I believe that it's our pain points that lead us into fulfilling our purpose. And then once we're within our purpose, over time, we're able to experience our passions. But it starts with our pain points. That's how we relate to others. That's how we know how to add value into others because we relate to those pain points. And so for you specifically, you were able to take an experience where, man, that had to have hurt and you were able to pivot off of that into doing what you're doing now. And so you're saying that was 2015 pivoted, and you've been doing it ever since. Is that right? Did I get the timeline right?
Yeah, I started doing this. I didn't know this was a business that I could do. I was just introduced to it because my cousin introduced it to me a few years ago, and I didn't know how to get into it then, and didn't even know it was a business that you could do. But then it just when I got to that point, and I was dating Shelly at the time, and that travel back and forth from Austin to Oklahoma City was just overwhelming, and it was
It's
burned
a long
out from
drive.
recovering from recovering from that pain, from that costly experience in 2010, and it was time for a different thing, change in life, I guess, if you will. And then, like you were saying, I think you're right that you hit something. The pain that leads to passion, it becomes your purpose in life. It seems. Uh, there's a author, one of my authors I've been listening to on audio instead of read some of his stuff too. But Dr. Miles Monroe had said something like, whatever, but to put it this way, whatever makes you angry is your passion, so to speak. And so the injustices that of what I experienced before that was really painful, angry, a lot of these different types of emotions that I experienced, and then the discovery of what could be possible for my business, and I was actually to use it for my business, and I saw the benefits of utilizing it. Become that helps me become who I am to be able to promote that with other people and show them what's possible instead of the other, the alternative.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so explain to the listener, what Legal Shield is. You kind of got to how and why you got there, but maybe explain some of the services, the value that is added to an individual who is able to kind of tap into what Legal Shield has to offer.
Great, awesome. Entrepreneurs, business owners, and those who are getting ready to become business owners. It's I'm going to put it this way: it's like having a law firm on retainer, being able to have your questions answered. Even if it's just questions answered, to me that was value in itself. But we were more beyond that. It's if you how do you create your LLC if you're becoming an LLC company? How do you go? How do you get contracts? What's a good resource to get contracts? Debt collection letters, things like that for businesses. Those are the top pain points that I notice, especially in the trades companies, right? Because I've been that and I know that I've experienced all of those. What does it cost to be able to have that consultation, right? We provide an avenue to do that without great expense. And then, of course, yes, when you do need specialized services or specialized something beyond what we cover, yes, there's a plethora of attorneys out there to do it. You may have a friend, you may have a cousin, you have a mom, a dad, a brother, whoever. And if you don't have any of that access, we have a network of attorneys nationwide that we can put you in touch with too as well. So you're not just buying just unlimited consultation. You're also buying into a network of attorneys that are nationwide. Especially for those that do business nationwide. See, and some of the trades companies that I know, Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, Louisiana, they have access to their attorneys no matter where they're doing business. Where else can you buy that power, and how much does that cost you? I mean, your multi-billionaires probably have that access even where they go. So it's kind of the same for your small businesses, if you will.
Yo, 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 thanks for listening this far. It's at this point in the episode that I want to talk about Streetwise franchising, teaching, training, building, Streetwise franchising. As a franchise consultant, it's my job, it's my absolute pleasure to be able to help aspiring entrepreneurs find, launch, and build their ideal business. If you've always wanted to start your own business, but you don't know where to start. If you want to leave that corporate job, but you're a little afraid to take the risk, I'm here to help. I've been a franchise owner for almost a decade. I've learned what it means to build a team, to run a business, to struggle. And I know, based on my experience, how to help others find the right ideal business for them. Streetwise franchising. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Let's get back to the episode. So we're talking about So unlimited consultations, did I hear you right? So you've got access to, if I've got an issue, I can just call a lawyer up and I've got their contact information. How does that work practically?
There's three ways with our services now, and it's every year it's being updated. And when I first started, it was just simply calling directly into the law firm. You tell the person, the receptionist, a brief description of what's going on. I need to talk to the attorney about XYZ, and that person will take a note and say, okay, we'll assign that to the correct attorney pertaining to whatever that is. It could be real estate law, contract law, speeding ticket law, whatever, right? And then within so many hours later, it's in their contract to call you back. Now it's been updated to where we can contact them and submit a request via app on your phone online. You can log in to your account and do it that way, or you can still simply do it by the 800 number. And in whatever area of law that you want to discuss is available to you, they'll assign that correct attorney for that area of law. And then during that time block that you select, they'll call you during that time. And as long as it's 4 hours or more in advance, like you right now, it is 1:49 p.m. Central Time right now. And if you were to put in a request right now, you may be able to get it within between now and 5:30 today, but most likely it's going to be between 8 and noon tomorrow, right? Because it's that 4 hour window that they have allowance for.
So you're paying a monthly, you're paying a fee for to be able to utilize the service. At what point does it cross over to where you actually have to pay more money to the individual attorney?
If it's like, that's a great question. So if it goes,
Sure, it depends on the circumstance, right? Like if it's a
that's,
criminal sort of a deal, or
yeah, yeah,
because I'm
yeah.
thinking
So
about franchise law. Go, yeah,
yeah, so it depends on what area of law and what, for one. So like if it's criminal defense and stuff like that, and, we do have trial defense hours and things like that. But then if we don't have that in place, then yeah, you'll be referred out to. Let me give you an example. Maybe this will help understand this
okay, yeah.
a little bit better. One of my examples that I had after I had left Oklahoma and came back to Texas and Miss Shelley for a while, decided to sell my land in Oklahoma. Well, there was something that I don't remember exactly what it was. It was, I think somebody put, and I was an LLC company, but in Oklahoma. So this is why this was a mix-up. But anyway, the point that I'm getting ready to say is that I had to be referred out to an attorney there in Oklahoma and get him on retainer because it's beyond what we covered to help release whatever that was on attached to my land before I can sell it. I was referred to an attorney there in Oklahoma. His retainer normal rate is $750 for his retainer, but as a member of Legal Shield, it was 500. And he did his thing to clear up the situation so I can sell my land. So I think it was a lien somebody tried to put on, and it got cleared up through his work and his efforts and things like that. And then, of course, the best part about that, and this is unheard of, when he was finished, he had sent me a $115 check of billable hours he did not use. That's the level of services that our law firms and attorneys have. If they don't use it, they don't need it, they'll send it back to you. Does that make sense? I don't.
Absolutely.
I've never heard
No,
any
that's
attorney outside of that do that.
wow. Okay, so I guess a practical example for me, back in 2019, 2020, it was around, we were going into COVID. Um, we had recently acquired two additional territories with Mosquito Joe, so we had expanded, and we purchased them from a another franchisee. A guy that we were buds. He was really cool. So we had set the price, but as we were operating, him and my dad, we had owner financed it, and so he was essentially the bank, and we were paying him a monthly recurring
fee. As we were going, so all the paperwork was signed and the deal was set. As we were going, I think there was maybe some talks between him and my dad about the payment structure and maybe altering it a little bit. And because we were on great terms, it was okay. We were gonna alter it because the business wasn't necessarily producing, what we had intended, and trying to be mutual and friends, and keep everything cordial. Well, COVID happened, and his wife had, there was some health stuff in the family. Well, now he needed the money that was on the paperwork. And so I walk into the office one day and my dad looks at me and, "Are you ready for your day to be ruined?" I said, "Well, no, but you have to tell me now." Previous owner is now suing us for not just the money that had been owed, but he wants all of it and he wants it now. And so, and we call the guy, and I understand situations change, and it just speaks to business and family and business and friendship and business and relationship in general. Just remember that business piece is first when it's everything else, it seems to be. So nothing against him and his family. I'd like to say that I could call the man up right now and we could have a great conversation. But the situation sucked and we had to
Right.
figure it out. And
Right.
we had to hire a lawyer and do all that. So how would have having Legal Shield in that moment? I mean, how would that have helped me?
Yeah, so great. That's awesome. That's almost kind of similar to my past experience in 2010. We just didn't use attorney because we think it's expensive. So the Legal Shield, though, keeps the cost down to where you call them up and say, you're going to end up talking to a business attorney and tell them the situation of what's going to happen. And then they can advise you on what to put in place to help protect one another, right? Because part of the reason why contracts do exist, really, and people don't think of it this way, when contracts exist between other people, help you remain friends. Like my customers in Oklahoma, I had contracts with them, even though I knew them from church or football, little league football, little league cheerleading practices, and all those stuff, and hanging out with them. I'd always still did a contract with them, and then then everything was spelled out. And of course, now I'm over detailed type of person, whatever, and I think that's what also my customers loved about me, I guess. But I think in this situation here, and this is to answer your question about how Legal Shield and their attorneys would do that. They get that consultation between you and the other party involved, and what do you want out of it, and that sort of thing. And then if you, they can advise you how to put that contract in place and word it in such a way to do that and then review it for you and then get back with you. So I'll give you an example. Like I had 2016, a roofing company in Plano had told me uh, they were they had got taken advantage by doing a roof for an attorney, and they didn't know it was an attorney until after the fact, and they had
Oh no.
their contract in place and stuff like this, and payment structures and things like that. And they got through off the job and stuff like that. And they were anticipating to collect a final payment of, I think he said 5,000. Okay. In retrospect, overall, it's kind of little in comparison to what they make overall, but that's beside the point. The the thing was at the end, they were told, hey, I'm a business attorney. This contract, the way it's written, I paid you in full the way your payment structure is based on this contract, the way you have it in place. So when they were talking to me about this service and stuff like that, and I said, yeah, here's what the services can do for you. We can review this contract, and each year that it goes on, the longer you stay a member, every year you can have that reviewed to make sure it's good. But when they got the service and I helped them walk through that situation to where you get this contract reviewed by them, and I was helped them use it, got called with was on the phone with the attorney. The attorney called back, after we submit the request, she called back and said, hey, I reviewed your contract. This is what needs to happen. If you do these things and submit it back to you, I'll review it again, make sure everything got in place, and that way you won't have this issue again. Call back later that day. And this is a span of a few hours, by the way. It didn't happen like that, but anyway, go back later that day, and she said, "Yeah, everything looks good." She even corrected one word that was misspelled and a grammar punctuation mark at one of the other sentences that was missed. And she says, "As long as you get those two pieces in place, and your contract is good, just be sure to have it reviewed every year." So that's, I think, I hope that answers your question in that regards. And it didn't cost that. It didn't cost that roofing company any more money than the membership to have that peace of mind.
Hmm.
You see, and that's where that would go. Now, if it gets beyond that, and if you want to have some other, someone to write it up for you and stuff like that, and then that's where that referral network of attorneys will be happy to help you at a discounted rate than normal. I like the example I shared with you in Oklahoma that I had.
No, that is helpful. I mean, hence the name Legal Shield. You've
Right.
got that barrier of protection. And yeah, I that would have been helpful back then. And okay, so what about? Okay, let me ask you this. So I'm in the franchising space. I've got multiple franchise brands, and I'm looking to be a franchise consultant. I'm in the process now of getting that business up and running. So I've got a lot of different stuff going on right now. Part of being a franchisee is you buy into this system and you sign an FDD. So a 10-year, or you get an FDD, but you sign the franchise agreement. And so usually it's a 10-year agreement that you're locked in. And a lot of franchise candidates, before they become a franchisee, they we're talking like a 400-page document. Are there franchise lawyers, franchise attorneys that specifically can focus on? I guess I'm kind of tapping into how deep is the roster of attorneys? Like, can I
Well,
access any form of attorney? Because there's so many.
yes. So when it comes to that, every area of law you can, at the very minimum, have a conversation with every area of law, whether it's franchise, real estate, traffic law, whatever, doesn't matter, is covered in consultation at the very minimum. So, yes, the answer to that, there will be someone that knows franchise law. Just understand that there's only so much that you can get with the services. I mean, okay, for the price point that you're paying for. Now, I've given you a few examples that would cost outside of what we have, like even just a contract review and back and forth conversation with that one roofing company in Plano. What would that normally cost outside of what we offer? You know, price that out. I think that I've heard people have a range between $500 to $1,200 for that sort of services to pay an
Wow.
attorney. You see, where that same $500 and $1,200 can get you a year or more of services, depending on what fits your budget and what fits your size of business. Yeah, so I'm going to say this again, though. At the very minimum, your questions can get answered. Now, as for contracts and reviews and things like that, whatever there is, page limits depending on your price points and what level of service that you purchase with us, right? And that also, there's going to be a cutoff limit too. They're not going to review a $400 or 400-page contract for just X number of dollars per month, right? They'll or some of our business plans, our lowest ones will review a 15-page contract. Then we have ones who will review 25-page contracts with no additional costs, right? So many per month and so forth and so on. But if it gets, again, then this is where if you need extensive stuff beyond that, and if you already have access to someone, great. If you don't, we have a network of attorneys that we can refer you out to for a different rate that might fit your budget better.
Okay, no, that's helpful. I think the right there, I mean, there's such value in the network. You know, everybody's situation is going to be different, but the lack of network is what holds a lot of people back. And again, the show, another key point is being able to show people that they can take what they have and where they are. They don't need to be over there. I don't need to be him. I don't need to be her. I can be myself in my situation, and I can level up with the resources they have at my disposal. And a big piece of that is my network. And so even everything that you're talking about right now, I think is so valuable. And I think that's the essence of being streetwise, is utilizing the resources at your disposal. So I think that's really good. All right, let's pivot a little bit and let's talk about the identity side of what you do. You know, it's
Okay.
one thing to have access to an attorney, um, but I mean, being proactive is setting up not just my legal defenses, but my, cyber defenses as well. And from what I understand, listening to you talk every week at the networking groups, that's a big piece of what you guys have to offer too, correct?
Identity theft, yes. Personal identity theft is, and your families. And yes, I do an interesting soundbite every week to bring awareness to that. The cyber, as for the cybersecurity type portions, that's going to be your IT type people that deal with that piece, that sort of thing. Like, making sure you have protections of your computers and things like that, of your business cyber security. That's a little different than your personal identity and your family identity. Now, just to give you a quick overview about our identity theft services, it's everything from A to Z that most people don't even think about. When people think about identity theft, though, what does most people think about? Financial, mostly credit cards, bank statements, and things like that. Yes, everybody in the world can take care of that, and that's awesome that that's in place, and it's getting better and better in all regards. But what about your medical insurance? What about your home private internets, things like that? We have things that help you there. We have what do we call those? VPNs, trend micro security, stuff like that. Reputation management, social media management, right? And why is that important? I mean, reputation in social media, stuff like that. Why is that important? One example is I can give you a friend of mine has a son that was getting ready to go to an Ivy League school. He could not get in because of his reputation of his social media. And so we have something like in place what we call reputation management. We can show you posts from the past and say, hey, you may want to clean this up. You know, right?
Wow.
Be able to not because people are looking at stuff like that, especially your Ivy League schools and whatever.
And the bigger people get, the bigger platform. I mean, you just hear about celebrities getting in trouble for tweets and things that they put out
Right?
10, 15 years ago. And, I want to be sensitive on this platform, but man, 10, 15, 20 years ago, culturally, we were different. The things that were okay to say back then, but people get blasted and canceled. And that's huge right now. So
Yep.
you're saying that you guys offer a service that basically audits
We
social
can go
media
back
accounts?
whatever you tell us that you want us to look at, like most of your the big ones that we monitor right now, and we're adding as we go along. When we first opened this up to all your social media, was Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Now it's those three plus YouTube and I just moved the keyboard.
LinkedIn?
I'm sorry,
LinkedIn?
LinkedIn. That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah. So we're monitoring 5 of them right now. And of course, your most popular ones, I guess, nowadays are what? Instagram, and that's one that we monitor. People are still using Facebook, and it's not Twitter anymore. It's called X.
X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been monitoring those and LinkedIn all this time, and of course now YouTube has become a big thing, right? Of course, like you mentioned.
So do you have to tell it what to monitor, or are there standards of like, okay, if I'm an individual in Georgia and I was posting tweets back in '05, maybe my tweets, and I'm sorry for everybody out there in Georgia, but I'm sorry. It's the stereotype, but it is what it is. Maybe I wasn't as racially sensitive back in '05 as what culture is telling me I need to be now. And so do I have to tell the Identity Shield platform to look for things sensitive to
So
race, or are there standards that are already set up?
so once you set up your account and you plug in all those things you want us to monitor, and then the reputation management will look through all the old stuff. Like they looked through my old Facebook account, right? And there was a couple messages that I posted on there publicly that showed up and said, you may want to consider removing that or something like that. Now, I'm not looking to get into an Ivy League school. I'm not looking for some big corporate company to hire me on for something right now anyway. So I don't think that's going to be something I'm looking forward to. But however, if I were to be in that position and I wanted to do that, that reputation management showing me those old posts from like my Twitter from way back '09, as far back as '09 is when as some of those posts that retweeted, kind of like what you're doing. Just saying things back then, and back then people didn't really was so sensitive. It seemed like. Well,
It was
now,
people weren't as sensitive. The culture of the whole woke coach culture wasn't as prevalent. Cancel culture wasn't really as big of a thing, but it was also we didn't have the resources. I mean, back in Facebook in '07, '08, '09, it was just me talking to my friends as a
right,
16, 17-year-old kid. And
right,
now, I mean, Facebook is everything, and LinkedIn is everything.
yeah,
Instagram. I mean, you I don't hire somebody without doing an extensive uh, background on their social media. And I don't always find their stuff, but I mean, you better believe I'm looking for it. I
yeah,
don't listen to somebody's podcast without looking back. And, there's just things that I've lived a life. I mean, I'm almost double that age now. And yeah, I mean, I can just imagine things that, just the language that I used is different. And just thinking about my kids have the access, or they will soon. They don't yet. They're too young, but they will soon have the ability to go back and what did dad say what did he talk about when he was, and that's a thing now. And so, I'll go back and I'll audit myself from time to time. I'll take a deep dive, but that takes a lot of time and a lot of scroll back. And, as an entrepreneur and somebody that's building these businesses, and I'm a family man now, I don't have time is money, time is freedom. And if I can invest in getting back my time and creating a sense of being proactive, I mean, there's so much value in that, man. That's
exactly.
huge.
Yeah,
That's huge.
for little money, you have a service that will take care of that for you, right?
Got it.
And then if you see it and you say, some that they'll point it out to you, what do you want us to do with it? And that's where our private investigators, we have our own in-house private investigators to take care of this stuff for you. And you know how much extra is it going to cost you? You see, it costs you that much more for us to take care of that for you. Even pre-existing cases now, or even stuff that people that may not even think that was identity theft or any relatable towards identity theft, and it shows up becoming a member today, and they set all that up, and they get alerts about X, Y, Z, and this and that and the other, and they're like, "Well, crap, I don't have time to restore it." But then they will turn it over to investigators to take care of that, and so we've changed that rule probably a year and a half ago to where pre-existing cases now will do that for them too as well.
Mm,
So that's
okay.
interesting that, like you were saying, that when you go back and review some people's social media and see what kind of person they were before, or that person now, probably not. However, though, that's still like the example that Ivy League school would not accept that one student because of some of his posts from way back, and stuff like that. get that cleaned up. We can help you with that. And we're just touching a small piece of what we do for identity theft. You know, um,
Yeah. Who do you guys cater to? I mean, is it to everybody? Is I'm sure it is, but do you find that more
anyone that's got a
people
social security color number,
say that one more time?
so if you're asking the question, who do we cater to for identity theft? Anyone that's got a social security number,
Yeah. So not just business owners,
not
not
just
just okay. Well, okay. Let me ask you this because I almost forgot this, but it just came back to me. As a business owner, I'm thinking about how do I build out benefits for my employees? Is there an aspect to this that my employees have access to that I can provide to them?
yeah, yeah. You can set it up like your medical insurance as a benefit, um, identity theft as a benefit. We can do legal plan as a benefit, and that can be volunteer or as fringe benefit. It depends on what the company. There's some companies will pay at least. Some large companies will take care of the identity theft as a fringe benefit for their employees because that's becoming the one top five benefits that employees are looking for nowadays. Because identity theft is rampant, and there's a lot of different ways that it's happening. In smaller companies, sure you can come in and set it up as an account, and it only takes one employee to open up. For us, it only takes one employee to open that up and say, "Yeah, I want at least the identity theft or the legal plan or both. It doesn't matter, either one. It's it's a choice there." And what was the third way is just any businesses that want to do it for themselves be an employee of their company and set it up that way to be cost effective for their budget, if you will. Does that make
You
sense?
guys help with wills and everything too. Is that right?
Yeah, our legal plan, for those that get the legal plan, personal legal plan, family legal plan, will and estate planning and healthcare or power attorney is available to them. Now, you know, if you're a Donald Trump money, you're going to pay someone else to do that. But those are not that. You get and I say it's better than basic. And just put it that way. It's the best way to answer that one. You know, now of course, as you grow and your estate grows and things like that, whatever for businesses that are outgrowing that sort of thing, then yeah, we'll have to refer you out to the most extensive when it becomes that. Does that make sense? For those that
Sure.
you're, um, your everyday business owners and everyday life right now, at the very minimum, especially those that have kids, should have something in place, and we do that at no additional charge. Because if something happens to you and your wife, and say take the state of Texas for example, where does your kids go? If you don't have anything in place, the state of Texas can say, well, we'll put them in foster care and decide whenever we're ready. And I was in foster care growing up, or finishing my last 2.5 years of school. Foster care is not fun. It's not a place for everybody, and it shouldn't be anyway. But that's what happens if we don't have something in place.
Wow. Yeah, my speaking of foster care, man, my gosh, I mean that could be a whole other episode right there, man. Just talking about that. My grandparents were foster parents, and so growing up, we had foster kids that would come, and I always loved going to my grandparents' house because there's always kids to hang out with and play with. But now that I'm older and I'm looking back, just I've got so much respect for them in doing that because I know the foster system is, it's a good thing, but no system is perfect, and not all foster parents are uh, probably should be foster parents. But I know that
That's a
there's
good way to say
a
that.
lot of yeah, that's probably a nice way to say that. There's a lot of amazing foster parents out there, and my grandparents ended up adopting two of the kids that were there, and these, they're not kids anymore. They were my age, and just to be able to have kind of grow up with that experience on the outside, seeing that I just got a lot of respect for people who do that, and for you, man, to have just gone through that. That in of itself is an entirely other episode, for sure. I do want to pivot though, in talking about you a little bit. Um, you hit that networking circuit hard, and I think that's super valuable because there's always these questions of what would you do if you lost it all. Where would you go? What would you do? And the thing that I always draw from people is you can't take away my skills, and you can't take away my network. You just
Right.
can't. You can't take away my relationships. So how is networking for you? How has that built you up as you've pivoted, you've grown in this? I mean, it's not necessarily new anymore, going on, almost 10 years of doing this. Um, how
Yeah.
important has building a network been to you?
Well, that's interesting too, because I mean, with my first business, and now that I think about it, I didn't do the type of networking that you and I are doing in business and stuff like that. But when I think about it, dude, the networking I was doing inadvertently was, hanging out with parents of, football, cheerleading, and church camps and activities, youth groups, and all those different things. That seemed like that was my network. Now that I think about it, but then of course, after I was finished with that business and moved back to Texas, and then trying to figure out, well, how do I meet business owners here? And then I was introduced to uh, business networking and master networks. You could probably edit that out later.
We give Master Networks a shout out. We give Master Networks. We can give the Chamber. We can give McKinney Downtown Networking Group. It's all right. We give
All right.
we're open hands on this show, man.
Okay, great. All right. I didn't know what those were. All right. Anyway, so I was introduced to networking, to business networking. Of course, now this type of business that I'm doing, it's like a night and day difference from doing construction and then explaining to people, what this is for people. And so my
Mm.
first few months, Savannah Dunn, the president of that chapter, it was 2018 when that chapter launched, and I was not there at the very beginning, but I was there shortly right after. You know, she, I'll say it this way first. I didn't understand the concept very well. It was like when I would meet with people, I was like, well, this is what I do and stuff like that. I was one of those guys. This is my service. This is that. And kind of being an introvert to begin with, anyway, ish, so to speak. I thought that's how it was supposed to be done. Now, back to Savannah Dunn, I have to give her a shout out because I'm grateful for her to have a sit down with me and one other person at the time that decided to say, look, I think you're a really great person, and let us sit down and share with you a few things, what's happening, what we're hearing, and stuff like that. And then when it was put to me in a certain way, it made a lot of sense. And then I was like, well, okay, great. Then I changed a pivot or made a decision and decided to say, okay, so if I take the time to learn about someone, figure out how I can connect them with someone else if I can, and continue to build relationships in that regards and be a contribution and come from that mentality and that mindset, then business comes. And then sure enough, that's exactly what's been happening since then. So,
Man, I love that. I love that. And I always, when I do these episodes, I'm always looking for the little sound bite, the snippet, the cut up. I tell you what, that was a cut up right there, man. That was so much value. Because yeah, you go to these groups and you automatically know the people that are just looking to sell you on stuff. And So it speaks to networking as a whole. It is about building out the relationship. It is about building out ambassadors for you as a person. But it's also really special that, I mean, I love, Savannah Dunn has been great. Had her on the show a couple episodes ago. And, she's been a great mentor and for me and building out my businesses and my own personal brand. But I think the true nature of love in and of itself is not just being nice. Sometimes there's a difference between nice and kind. And sometimes when you're expressing kindness, you're really caring for that person, but you're having a very tough conversation and you're confronting them in that. So I think that's really special that happened and that that leads to growth. So I think that's really cool, man. Thank you for sharing that. Definitely.
If it had not been that moment in time that she took the time to sit down with me, it was a meeting. It was the summer of 2018, I believe it was. I don't know where I would be at now.
Yeah.
I know I guess I'd probably, my passion for the services would probably still have been there, but I'm going to have to say I'm really grateful for that the way it went down. I have to say it that way. I can't fathom being anywhere else, and I don't want to try to envision something that never happened anyway, right? Because I think things happen for the reasons and the way they happen, and they're supposed to happen that way to get to the moments that we're in now.
Yep. 100%. Said it earlier. Pain leads us to our purpose. Our purpose helps us to experience our passions. And yeah, I think things happen, not just things happening for a reason, but the things that happen allow us to grow and to be the people that we need to be. And so I think that's really good. Well, okay, man, this has been great. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Are there any other, taking your experience as a business owner in multiple lanes, now you're much more geared towards helping people out and protecting themselves and being proactive in the sense of legal advice and legal guidance, but also from the identity side. Man, what do you have to say to the people? Maybe a nugget of, one last value add, somebody listening right now before we wrap this thing up.
No matter what you do in life, think about your family, where you come from, and be that person to help someone. I'm going to say it this way. Just be a great listener. You have 2 ears for a reason.
That's good, man. That's good. Well, JB, man, it is a pleasure to know you, to be networking with you. I see you just about every week, man, and it's been, golly, it's crazy how the older I get, time just seems to just move so much faster. But known you for dang near 2-3 years now, man, and it's great to have somebody like you in the network. The consistency that you show up every day. I can tell that you add value to the people in the room, the people that you interact with. I can see that's where your heart is at, and you definitely added value to the audience. And to you, listener, man, thank you so much for making it this far. It means so much to me that there's people out there that listen to the show that are trying to get better each and every day. If you liked this, share it with somebody, give it a 5-star review. And as always, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.
That's awesome, dude.
All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you for making it to the end. Hey, if you like this episode, if it added value in any way to your life, do me a favor, give it a like, share it with a friend, give me a review, leave a comment, whether that's a rocket emoji, thumbs up, a fire, 100 emoji, leave me something. It's the only way to get this out there to other people, and I appreciate you so much for listening. As always, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.